What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 139. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this channel where we talk about all the new movies that are releasing in theaters or in streaming. We break them down on these episodes. First half of the episode, I go through a non-spoiler section, give you a little bit of a synopsis, my overall thoughts and opinions after leaving the theater, and also a recommendation whether you should check this out in theaters immediately, wait for streaming, or maybe even skip it. Second half of the podcast, we then transition over to some spoiler territory. We talk about pros and cons, favorite performances, favorite moments, and then we wrap it all up at the end of the podcast by deciding, is this movie timeless? Is it something that can stand the test of time and be rewatched various different times in the future? Before talking about this week's episode and new movie, I did want to highlight that the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on all platforms like Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Give us a follow, listen, subscribe, leave comments, leave reviews. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts about the podcast and also your thoughts about some of the movies that we have been reviewing. Speaking of prior movies, I did want to highlight that episode 138 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is out on all those platforms that I just mentioned. And the movie that we ended up talking about was F1 from Apple. This stars Brad Pitt and it is directed by Joseph Kosinski. I was super pumped before even watching the movie. And then after I left, I mean, it was incredible the way that they were able to film some of these racing scenes. It's just immaculate how they utilize the sound design and all these different elements to make it feel like you were in the cockpit with Brad Pitt in those Formula One cars. If you have seen Formula One, go give that episode a listen and let me know in the comments. Do you agree or disagree with some of my pros and cons and my decision on whether it is timeless? All right, now let's go ahead and I guess jump into the jungle because yes, in this week's podcast, we're going to be talking about the new film from Universal. That's right, we are talking about Jurassic World Rebirth. We are back on the island, back in the jungle, back in this franchise to talk about dinosaurs again. Now, before we talk about my non-spoiler thoughts of this new movie, a little bit of a history lesson for most folks that are listening here on my opinions on Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was one of the first movies that I remember watching as a kid. I owned it on VHS. I remember rewatching it so many different times, and I was amazed at how they were able to bring dinosaurs to life. And as a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I wanted to be Alan Grant. And so it was such a fun memory of that movie. And ever since then, I've kept up with this franchise. I've tried to watch all of the other Jurassic Park movies, Jurassic World. Obviously, they've all different levels of enjoyment, right? To me, still, Jurassic Park is and you can even say, my first timeless movie, maybe? That's the one movie that I could just rewatch over and over again. And even to this day, it still has things that just make me smile, just make me just thrilled by what I'm seeing on screen. And so, again, it has a very special place in my heart. So I've given these Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies a lot of different types of just, flack for what they tried to at least grow in regards to the lore of this universe. And so when I heard that Jurassic World Rebirth was coming out, I was like, okay, but why though? The last two Jurassic World films were just not great. It actually hurt my enjoyment of this universe. But then I saw that it was connected to Gareth Edwards. He's the director of this film. I saw Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Jonathan Bailey were tagged to it. So I wanted to give it another shot. And so now that we got to check it out on opening night, let's go ahead and now move over to the non-spoiler section so you can kind of get my opinions and overall high-level thoughts on my experience with Jurassic World Rebirth. Okay, after leaving the theaters, watching Jurassic World Rebirth, I gotta say that I had an enjoyable time watching this movie. What is so impressive is that even though I've seen so many of these Jurassic Park / World types of movies, the action still gets me hyped. It still gets me excited. Something about seeing a dinosaur on screen, either just an Ultrasaurus walking around the island, a T-Rex coming after our survivors. No matter what it is, those moments still have me in the theater, in the seat, just all giddy and excited. I just love seeing these action moments. And Jurassic World Rebirth, it nails all of the action sequences in this movie. Everything is executed so well. And again, it's no surprise. You've already had so many of these different types of movies, but yet they're still able to kind of add a couple of new elements to still make it very fresh. So that's probably one of the bigger positives I can give this movie is the action sequences. When the dinosaurs are on screen, everything is thrilling, everything is intense. You feel that there's actually something at stake. Where the movie gets dropped down a little bit, though, is in the dialogue between some of the characters in the first act. It's a bit rough, I'm not gonna lie. There's some conversations are just, you just feel that it doesn't sound like actual things that people would say, and it brings down the fun of the movie, which is unfortunate. You never want the movie to go from fun to like, "Oh, okay, I gotta listen to these characters," and then, okay, back to fun. But that's kind of the, I guess, roller coaster that I felt like I was on when I was watching this movie. But again, it's only for the first act, and then eventually when you get the dinosaurs back into play, that's where things just start ramping up even more. Now, speaking of the dinosaurs and the story of this movie, let's give you a little bit of a synopsis about what takes place in the world of Jurassic World Rebirth. This film starts off by letting you know that 32 years have passed since the original Jurassic Park. So it tells you like where the world has been, after what happened in Jurassic World. If you've seen those movies, dinosaurs are now roaming the earth again, but all of a sudden they start going extinct because the climate just does not fit for these dinosaurs. And so now there's only a small subset of dinosaurs that still exist, but they all live near the Earth's equator. Now, why do they live in the equator? Well, it's because the equator actually has the perfect climate for these dinosaurs to survive. And so this equator has actually been forbidden for the public to actually go visit. But that does not stop this character named Martin, played by Rupert Friend, to try to enlist a couple of people in order to get blood samples from this forbidden area from live dinosaurs. He ends up enlisting the character Zora, played by Scarlett Johansson, in order to help gain access to this island and then try to almost extract live blood samples from three of the biggest dinosaurs. So that's the goal. They are talking about, what this is going to help out with. And essentially, these blood samples are going to help out with, saving people's lives from coronary heart disease. Now, it sounds all good. And then the moral piece of it is that Martin from this pharmaceutical company essentially wants to sell it for trillions of dollars. So there's always that catch that this pharmaceutical company wants to try to utilize this type of DNA or blood for. And so Zora ends up enlisting a couple of other folks to create her team, and they're able to now go out into the island in order to try to get these samples. And as you would expect, this mission ends up turning into a nightmare as they are now put in survival mode because on the island that they are in, not only are these dinosaurs a little bit different, they're actually mutated. So they're actually dinosaurs that were tested on by some of the InGen folks that were trying to come up with unique dinosaurs. Instead, these became mutated and rejected dinosaurs that never were shown to the public. And so that's where I'll leave it off. You can expect that things are going to go wrong, people are going to die, but it is so damn thrilling when the dinosaurs are on screen. So overall, again, I had a good time with this movie. Not going to be my favorite Jurassic Park movie. We'll talk a little bit about rankings later in this podcast, but it's still a fun time in regards to what's going on. As long as you can kind of get through that first act when there's just a lot of dialogue, a little bit of exposition about what's going on. But once the dinosaurs are there, you're seeing them interact with some of the characters and some of the survival tactics that some of the characters have to go through. It's just super awesome to see and intense. So my recommendation is going to be if you have seen the prior Jurassic Park movies and the Jurassic World movies, if you've been a fan, I would say check this one out. Seeing it in theaters is going to be really cool, especially if you can get it in IMAX or Dolby Cinema, because the sound is going to be really intense, really loud, especially when all these dinosaurs come out in these scenes. That's going to be my recommendation is, again, if you're a fan of the Jurassic World and Jurassic Park franchise, just limit your expectations. Don't think that it's going to be, it's going to reinvent the entire franchise as a whole. It will not. So just come in with your expectations pretty much set at a good level, and don't try to think of it as, again, it's going to be the best movie in the entire franchise. It does add some cool elements to it, but again, it doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. If you have never liked these movies in regards to the dinosaurs and Jurassic Park as a whole, this will not convince you. So hopefully that kind of helps you in regards to whether you should check this movie out or not. All right, those are my thoughts and opinions at a high level. Let's now segue into the spoiler section of this podcast. So, if you don't want to be spoiled and you still haven't seen Jurassic World Rebirth, please jump out of the video, watch the movie, then come back. That way you can hear my thoughts. And in the comments, let me know if you agree or disagree with some of the points that I will be bringing up. All right, let's go ahead now. That's enough of a break. Let's jump into pro number one. What is that one element of Jurassic World Rebirth that I just really enjoyed? And the first thing has got to be this is going to be really obvious, the dinosaurs. But more specifically, I loved the action sequences that involved the dinosaurs. I mentioned this a little bit before in the non-spoiler section, but it's crazy how I've seen so many of these types of scenes before in the prior 6 movies of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchise, yet I don't get tired of it. I don't get tired when a T-Rex comes out on screen, when a Mosasaurus jumps out of the water to try to bite and kill one of the characters, when you get introduced to new dinosaurs, and again, that intensity, the thrilling aspect of, okay, are these characters going to survive or are they not? All of that is just why I love this franchise so much. But it's also a combination of that. Not only is it the dinosaurs and how they visually look, it's also the sound design. The sound design is just so outstanding. Like I mentioned before, whenever you have these scenes in the water where the Mosasaurus or the Spinosaurus come out, you can hear the splashes going down. You could hear the boat getting rocked when you have the Mosasaurus kind of swimming and kind of get some of the survivors out of the boat. So many great things. Then there's also this new dinosaur that, like, again, is like a mutation. And I'm going to look at my notes because I am going to mispronounce this like crazy. But this new dinosaur was called the Quetzalcoatlus. It's almost like a huge pterodactyl, almost like a 15-foot wingspan. I think they try to compare it to like a fighter jet. But this dinosaur is just the way that it just glides over and then it uses its beak to try to knock off some of the survivors and then try to eat them as well. Again, the sound design is just so cool in order to capture all of the surroundings of the island and all these different types of dinosaurs. Everything from the sound, it was just impeccable for me. I love it. And that's, again, one of those aspects that has just consistently been good in the entire Jurassic Park franchise. Also want to give a special shout out to the composer of Jurassic World Rebirth in Alexandre Desplat. His score uses a lot of the awesome elements of John Williams' classic score, but he also adds its own little themes into it as well. And so, again, want to give a shout out because the score ends up adding more tension, adding more to those scenes where, okay, is something going to happen? Because sometimes it swells and it speeds up when they're being chased by a dinosaur. And then when you think there's going to be calm moments, that the score ends up kind of getting very still, very calm, and then no, it just sets you up for a jump scare moment. So there's a lot of different things that go around with these action sequences. But again, it's not just one singular item. It's how the dinosaurs look. The visual effects are incredible. The sound design is used so well in so many different scenes, whether they're in a cave, whether they're in the ocean, or whether they're just kind of hiding out in a little market. Everything from the sound just works. And then the score itself also adds so much to these scenes. So that's going to be my first big pro, which is all of the action that's involved in this movie with the dinosaurs and the different levels that just make this experience so much more enjoyable for me. Second pro is going to be the family that appears in this movie. So you actually have 2 different groups that are appearing in this movie. The first group is actually Zora, Henry, who's played by Jonathan Bailey, and Mahershala Ali's Duncan. So you have these characters that are looking for the samples. But then you have a separate family that are Ruben, Isabella, Teresa, and Xavier. You have this family that is just sailing on a boat, and they just out of nowhere get looped into this tragedy of having to be on this island of rejected dinosaurs. They didn't want to be there. They had no plans to be there, but they somehow find themselves on this island. And at first, I thought, okay, well, what is this family doing here? What's the purpose of this? And especially these characters of Xavier and Ruben. Xavier is the boyfriend of the character Teresa, and he's like a typical modern character of our times in 2025. He's very lazy. He's very like, oh, he smokes weed, and then he butts heads a lot with Ruben, who again, he's like the dad figure. And so you feel like, okay, this is gonna be like that interesting conflict that you have of a old generation and a newer generation. But what's so cool is that as this family is put in this island and there are stakes now, they have to survive. The family immediately went to the top of the list of, okay, I care about these characters. I don't want them to die. I want them to make it out alive. And they were put in various different situations where you at one point think that Xavier is going to die. You think that, oh, Teresa's going to fall off a boat and she's going to get eaten by a Spinosaurus. Oh, Ruben messes up his leg. Is he able to run away and make it? And so many different things happen to this family. They just are just unlucky at so many different points, but they're able to actually make it out alive. But this family actually became the core of this movie for me. I actually wish that this family was maybe the focal point. At first, maybe Ruben and Xavier are at odds, and then by the end of the movie, they're on the same side. Ruben understands, hey, well, Xavier, he might be a weird kid, but he cares about my daughter. He jumped out of the boat to try to save my daughter. And so he sees that there actually is a love there. And so again, this family just became the biggest piece of my enjoyment of this movie, and I actually couldn't care less about the the main cast of characters that were looking for the samples. I didn't really care about that. I wanted this family to survive, and I just enjoyed every time they had to survive different interactions with dinosaurs. So that's my second pro, the family that included Ruben, Bella, Teresa, and Xavier. They just did such a great job in regards to just highlighting their whole adventure on this island. Okay, and then the last pro that I wanted to call out is the island itself. I thought it was very clever that they went to an island where these are all dinosaurs that were rejected or mutated. So they basically got to a point, and they kind of explained this a little bit at the beginning of the movie, where people got so bored with seeing the same old dinosaurs like raptors or T-Rexes or Brachiosauruses. So InGen started to mutate and actually play around with making these new dinosaurs. However, they went overboard sometimes. They had these dinosaurs that had two heads, very freaky, and eventually ended up making this dinosaur called the D-Rex. And it just looks so weird. At first, like when I saw this dinosaur, it looked like it didn't have eyes, but it did. It just has this weird dome-shaped head. And so that, I think, was such a awesome idea. And I think for Gareth Edwards and the team that created Jurassic World Rebirth, this actually is super refreshing for them. They don't have to rely on using the same dinosaurs. They can now create these dinosaurs that we have never seen in order to just make the audience feel like, what the heck are we looking at? What is this dinosaur? How are the survivors going to escape this predicament that they're in? So again, like they have these dinosaurs that are like mutated between a pterodactyl and a raptor. You have the D-Rex. You have all these different types of, again, these creatures that you just don't understand like what their mutation is, yet they're super freaky to look at. And I was actually a little greedy when I was watching the movie. I wanted to see more. I wanted more creatures. I mean, we got a lot of different types of dinosaurs that we had never seen before, but I would have just thrown in even more creatures just to kind of show like, hey, look, this is what everybody was thinking like of trying to make to get people back into the parks to see these dinosaurs. I would have loved to see a dinosaur with two heads. I would have loved to see just another mix of different creatures. But again, I was happy with what we got, but just the entire idea of an island with creatures and dinosaurs that were never shown to the public, and now these set of individuals and these families are now here experiencing them, I just thought was a clever way to introduce a new style and a new set of dinosaurs. All right, everybody, those are all the pros that I had in regards to Jurassic World Rebirth. Let me jump into a couple of cons that I had. And again, these are some of the things that I kind of pinpointed in the non-spoiler thoughts. But first con is the dialogue in the first act. I just could not connect with these characters. Whenever Zora was talking to Duncan or to Henry about some type of backstory about their life or figuring out where they are in their lives, it just didn't feel real. It didn't feel authentic. I could tell that they were just kind of going through the motions. And that's really unfortunate for me. I wanted to really connect with these characters. And this kind of goes back to why I love the family of Ruben, Bella, Teresa, and Xavier. There was no backstory to them. There was nothing where you hear Ruben talk about, well, Xavier, why are you like this? Or, hey, how's this going? Like, it was nothing like that. You just got to see them survive. You saw that there was stakes, that their lives were at risk, and you immediately just cared about every conversation that they were having from then on out when they were on the island. As compared to when you have Zora, Duncan, and Henry kind of talking to each other, they're not at stake yet. So everything that they're talking about is just, okay, backstory, backstory, backstory. I didn't really like that. It just nothing about Zora or Henry I could really connect with. Nothing about that. Nothing felt again real. Nothing felt like it was something that I could emotionally invest myself in. Where I'm like, okay, no, I don't want nothing to happen to Henry. I don't want anything happening to Zora. I never felt that way. So that's really unfortunate for when you're watching this movie. You should care about your main characters. Instead, I cared more about the side characters that came out later on in the movie. All right, and then the last con that I had, very small nitpick, but there was a lot of Easter eggs and familiar beats that have come out in prior Jurassic World movies. Now, myself, I love lore. I love a franchise. I love Easter eggs. But I think that in this film, it was done a little bit too many times where it felt like it was just trying to show respect to the original Jurassic Park. Like, for example, in one scene, you have Zora and Henry who are both looking at the Ultrasaurus and they kind of get emotional. And it reminds me of like the first time Alan Grant and Ellie Sadler look at a dinosaur as well. So there was that scene. But then there's also a scene where the family is in a little market and then a raptor pterodactyl mix is trying to chase them down. And it kind of reminds me of a scene that happens in Jurassic Park 1. There's the flare scene. There's the scene at the end where they're looking out at the ocean after they survive. Instead of seeing seagulls, they see dolphins. There's all these different familiar beats that I just don't think were necessary. And again, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to show their respect to the original Jurassic Park. But when you do that, it stops your movie from being its own thing. It stops it from being original. So again, a small little nitpick. I enjoyed some of the Easter eggs, but felt like it happened a little bit too many times in this movie. All right, that's enough for the negative stuff in regards to Jurassic World Rebirth. Let's give some awards away. Some awards for best shot, best scene, as well as the MVP of this movie. Favorite scene of this movie involves a dinosaur, no surprise. But which dinosaur was the one that got involved? It was actually the T-Rex, my favorite dinosaur of all time. And he's involved in this moment where, again, the family, Ruben, Bella, Teresa, Xavier. They are trying to find a way out of this island, find a way to a village, and they are able to get a raft boat. But what they end up noticing is that when they're trying to get this raft boat out of a specific place, they notice that a T-Rex is right there napping. And then all of a sudden the T-Rex gets up, drinks water, and then they think that they're in the clear as they start swimming very slowly. And then all of a sudden they make a little bit too much noise in the water, and the T-Rex immediately turns around and it begins with a crazy and intense chase scene by this T-Rex. There's a bunch of close calls where it seems like the T-Rex is about to eat some of the characters. It was just so well thought out. A little bit of luck, or maybe not a little bit, a lot of luck that this family ends up going through, but still, the thrills that I got when I was watching this movie, or this scene specifically, the thrills that I got where I was just like, my heart was beating because I just saw this T-Rex. This T-Rex was swimming. I had never seen a T-Rex swim before. Don't even know if that's possible at all. But that whole sequence of the T-Rex chasing down this family on this boat was the best action of this movie. And then last but not least, my favorite shot or frame of this movie is going to involve a T-Rex again. And it's actually from that same sequence. When this family is trying to slowly swim away in the raft, you have the T-Rex immediately turn around and it just gives this sinister look like this is going to be my lunch today. And that one shot of the T-Rex just framed looking down at the family, incredible. Great visual effects. And again, T-Rex is just one of those visually appealing dinosaurs that just looks so epic and so grand. I love it. So that's going to be my favorite frame and shot of Jurassic World Rebirth. All right, everybody, I have been talking enough about this movie in regards to what I liked and didn't like about it. Let us now move into the last section, which we are going to be discussing whether Jurassic World Rebirth is timeless. Is this a movie that I would want to rewatch in the future? Very simple answer for me. You might expect it already, but Jurassic World Rebirth is not a timeless movie for me. Again, the connection to the main characters was a big drawback for me in this movie. If would have gotten a little bit more as to, oh, I would have connected more to Zora, to Henry. I feel like their chemistry, their connections, everything was more organic and they would have been something like, oh, yeah, like I really am invested in these characters. I feel like I maybe would have thought about this one being timeless, but once again, that kind of dialogue, that backstory, the things that they were explaining in the first act, it just kind of brought that experience down a lot for me. So it's unfortunate, but again, that is not going to make it timeless for me. And when it comes to the rankings, I do think that Jurassic World Rebirth is actually better than the last couple of Jurassic World films. I still don't think it gets to the level of Jurassic Park, Lost World, and Jurassic Park 3. Those three movies are still the top of the list. But again, just Jurassic World Rebirth, it tries out different things, right? It tries to show you unique and mutated dinosaurs. It tries to show you another family that's trying to survive in this island. But again, this gets you to a question now, which is, what else is there left to say about this Jurassic World universe? Is there any other ideas that we can then come up with that make it unique? Me personally, I don't think so, guys. To me, I feel like I would be okay with, okay, this franchise kind of wrapping up and let's kind of move on. I don't think it'll happen. I'm pretty sure Universal will continue to try to make more Jurassic World movies. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Do you think that this Jurassic franchise should keep going? And what did you think about the movie? Do you think Rebirth is timeless? Is it one of your favorite Jurassic Park movies? Let me know down below in the comments. That way we can continue to interact and talk about this movie. All right, everybody. Appreciate all of you sticking all the way through to listen to my full thoughts about Jurassic World Rebirth. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 139 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode because it is episode 140. We will have a special guest, my brother Omar Vasquez, but we are also talking about probably my most anticipated movie of 2025. That is right. We are talking about James Gunn's newest film, Superman. I cannot wait. So make sure to check out this channel for when that episode ends up dropping. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you later.